Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Dorset, Vermont to explore the stunning home of interior designer Joshua Smith. Nestled in 70 acres of land, this exquisite French Rambler-style home offers breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains and valleys. The home underwent extensive renovations to restore its New England charm, and given the home's beautiful location, Joshua seamlessly integrated nature into his design. Large windows frame the gardens on each side, and a mix of contemporary decor and antiques creates a cozy, welcoming atmosphere. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, welcome to my home in Dorset, Vermont. I'm Joshua Smith. Come on in, take a look. Hi there, my name is Joshua Smith. I am an interior designer and a lifestyle and wellness expert, and I am so glad you're here with me today in Dorset, Vermont. My husband and I found this house during the pandemic. We had been doing the New York City, upstate New York, Connecticut thing for years, but our house sold during the pandemic. Somebody knocked on our door and had to have it. And they were like, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go? Well, just a year before, we had been through this area, Vermont, exploring, and we found the Dorset Hollow. And if you don't know what a hollow is basically two mountains with a body of water or a stream of some sort running through it. So when we ended up turning in here by accident, we were like, where are we? Is this, what just happened? Because it is so magical here, and you'll get a glimpse when we go outside. But it's kind of amazing to see. It's like the sound of music. Really is what the experience is. But we'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the house. So this house was built in the early 90s. It was a custom home, and it's kind of like a French Rambler. It just kind of goes all over the place, and it really capitalizes on being integrated in nature. So, you know, a lot of the modernists have that movement. We're all about incorporating that, but so were traditionalists as well. And so you'll notice there's different gardens on each side that face different areas. We've got the woodland garden in the front. We've got the more French formal water feature garden over here. And then we've got the big terrace out here with pond, garden, all that stuff. So you'll see that in a minute. But with the house, well, it hadn't been updated in ever. So we had our work cut out for us. And when I walked in, I was like, this is gonna be hard to do because it was during the pandemic. People weren't readily available, they were booked. But luckily I'm an interior designer, and I have some people, great people that work with me, and they were able to pull it off and help us out. Because we were in California at the time, and so it was very hard to kind of manage a project when you're not there. But we did it. And I'm happy that you're going to get to see it today because we have fallen in love with this area and have planting roots. What's interesting about this house too is that there's all these architecture features, even if the ceilings are maybe a little bit on the lower side than what I would normally love. The views that you notice from all around, like this goes up the mountain, and we have about 70 acres that kind of on our property here at the top of this side of the mountain, the lower hollow. Upper hollow is across the way. We'll look at that outside. But here we decided to, this was just like shambles and not much to it, but we decided we wanted more of a formal French kind of a garden. So these are hydrangea trees. So we're a little early, but those are the limelights. So they bloom white and then they turn with the fall. They're gorgeous. But we love the water feature there because who doesn't love the sound of water? So we can close the screens. We can sit in the chair and read. It gives us a whole other zone, because I'm all about the zones, right? Like, how do we actually live in our home? And where do we go to the places that energize us or inspire us or retreat to? And we all have cozy places. And I always tell my clients that when we're designing your home and we do your home and you move in, you've got to make sure you utilize every single room, because if you don't, we're creatures of habit. And so you want to make sure that you utilize the space to kind of chill and zen out, listen to that water flow, right? So that's why we did this garden here. It's more formal here, but it's this big grand entry. At first I was like, is this a bowling alley? How am I gonna make this feel like it's several zones? And so that's what's magical about the ability to do that, is so we decided to make this actually a room. And it's in the sense that you can grab a book from the library here. We've got, oh, this is one of my favorite pieces, y'all. So this is a Swedish 1860s secretary. Even the little key is still here. And they used to lock their little valuables in there. But my husband got this for my birthday because I've been eyeing this piece and I love this piece, but I didn't want to splurge on this piece. And so he decided to get it for me, and I was just over the moon. Love it, love it, love it. And then one of my secret recipes, I would call it, to make things not feel so stuffy is, you'll notice that I put a modern chair with it, right? Something about adding the modern with the traditional, to me, as you'll notice that as we go throughout the house, makes it feel not so stuffy, not so formal. I call it livable beauty. I call it livable antiques. I don't necessarily think everything has to be perfect or pristine. I love to embrace imperfection. So you'll notice a lot of patina, a lot of wear and tear, just like me, hey. So, no, all of us. And so I think that's a big lesson there, is noticing that sometimes our outward environments can reflect our inner state of mind and vice versa. So we want to make sure that, or at least I want to make sure, and I teach my clients, that we want to make sure our places are places that support us, that enhance how we live and support our well-being. I say our houses can be our stressors, our sanctuaries, but they can't be both. So that is why there's all these things that we can do to corral clutter, organize, contain, zones, water fountain features. We have to talk about this piece, of course, right? This is a Belgian mirror from 1876, I believe, is what I was told when we bought it. And oh my gosh, if this mirror could talk, could you imagine what it has seen? But it's pretty amazing, because this is the original patina and how the mirror has oxidized and aged over the years and has never been broken. But it's hanging on by a thread. I don't think it can make any more moves. So I told my husband, I said, if we ever sell, this thing's gonna have to stay and people are gonna have to want it, because we can't have it lose any more of its parts. But what I love about this mirror is it also serves as basically another doorway. It feels like you can go into another room. The reflection of it is absolutely beautiful. So this chair is so comfortable. You'll sink into it and you'll never want to get out. But when I first saw it, and my husband pointed it out, I was like, oh, no way. Because it was that red kind of naga hide from like the 70s. And this is where vision is so important, right? Because it could have been just like, no, that is not gonna work for us. But it was like, you know what? If we were to make that a creamier, lighter color, it could be super beautiful. And so look, we did it. It was a great deal. And so we bought the leather and had it reupholstered, and it's turned out to be one of our favorite pieces. Like I said, once you sink into it, you never want to get out. And that's why we put it here, is because it's a great place to put your feet up and listen to the fountain and relax in this area. And of course, again, once I said that I love to mix new and old, and so we chose to go with just a concrete round table next to it. Of course, I have a thing for crystals. I have for years. I started collecting when I was a kid. And so you'll notice all throughout bookcases and throughout the house that I incorporate those into all of my spaces for myself, and my clients usually end up with some too. And of course, fresh flowers, always lift your spirits. I feel like flowers are the single easiest way to lift your spirits. If you just stop and get yourself a bunch, or go outside and cut a few and put it at your desk or your table or by your anywhere near you, you're gonna feel better. Just like you do when you go out in nature. Mother Nature has this magic about her. And you'll see as we go outside some more of that. So from here, I would say, let's come this way. I want to show you something in here because it's tucked away, but it's kind of like its own little world. So this is the powder room, but the powder room is a place that I feel like you can always kind of bring more personality, right? Maybe go a little bolder than you normally would in your living space. For me, I like more serene, calm, soothing, but the powder room is something that could be super fun. So I found this Pierre Frey wallpaper that is this watercolor of these trees, right? So it's kind of handsome. My husband was like, we're not doing flowers on the wallpaper. But trees, we were good to go. And this, just so you know, one of my designer secrets is I love to look for old frames, and then I just take them to the glass shop and ask them to make a mirror for them. So you end up getting this really beautiful piece and turned into mirror, so it's sustainable also. We love to do that, and that's the purpose of antiques. But then I just hung this fun artwork. This table was actually the previous owner's. It was a table, and I turned it into the vanity and put the sink on that. And people always just love to visit the powder room when they're here. So here we are off the Great Hall, and as I mentioned, this is a Rambler, and when I say that, I mean Rambler. So when you come in the door, we call this the Great Hall, of course, but there's an entrance into the kitchen, there's an entrance into this room, and there's an entrance into the library. But this room was originally, this was a custom home, and it was a musician, and he built this so that he could have his piano in here. And his wife was insistent that the pocket doors be put in on both sides so that he could keep his music as contained as possible. So for us though, I wish I played the piano, I don't. We turned it into a media room. And so we wanted this to be more of a cozy space in between all of the brightly lit view spaces. And so we opted to go with like the grass cloth in here. I'm very warm, very comfortable. I want to go handsome. I found these amazing kind of like Greek god kind of vintage pieces, but I love to mix, like I said, the old with a modern piece. And then you have something that's more personal, more interesting. It tells a story. I think it's so important to like not just create. For me, my philosophy has always been, my job as a designer is to help you figure out who you are and how do we express that through your home. It's not about what I find beautiful, it's about what you find beautiful. And so my job is to help uncover that for you. So for me though, this is something that just feels warm and inviting and cozy. And at the end of a long day when you just want to collapse, I could collapse right now, but I'm not going to. You just want to fall right in and sink in. So it's a fun space. So one other thing that I should point out, just because it's super fun, well, we have binoculars and a bird watching book just in case people are here visiting and they want to watch, because there are so many birds. But these chests are antique, vintage like tea chests that came over, and they still have all of the paper kind of tattered and torn, but again, so much history, so much story. But I thought that the chests were a great way to kind of work in something that's a more mid-century style sofa, but not having super tall end tables. The tea chest worked out perfectly. So from the media room, we go right into the dining room. So follow me. Okay, so now we are in the dining room, and I love this because you'll see in a minute, the view from here is spectacular. Now the view from here, what's he doing? Why has he not finished that wall? Well, it's because I have a philosophy that you buy what you love. And you buy once and you buy well. And so, for example, this farm table is one of my favorite pieces that we own. It is French trestle table, probably in the late 18th, early 19th century, but it's absolutely stunning. It feels like talc, like powder. It's so soft because people have been entertaining and dining on this for hundreds of years. Like if you think about that, it's like, what? Of course, then I had to adorn it with some beautiful jewelry here with this crystal ball, but this wall is the wall that I'm struggling to find the right piece. And so I have an empty wall here, and I think this is where we embrace imperfection, and it drives me crazy sometimes. Oh, somehow the dog's got, open the door. Hello, that's Crosby and Mabel. and they have opened the door from the bedroom. Hi, can I help you? So they adorn the house as well. It's really their house. I just live here. But so what I was going to say is, like, one of the things I tell my clients too is, like, we don't need to rush just to fill something and buy something just to fill the space. You want to make sure it has meaning. You want to make sure it has resonance with you. I took a client recently to an art gallery. She's like, how am I going to know if I love the art, if it's the right for me? I said, you'll know. So as we were looking and they pulled out pieces, she's like, oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. And they pulled out another piece and she's like, oh! I said, stop. I said, did you see what just happened? She's like, what? I said, you said, oh! And she's like, oh yeah, like I've got chill bumps. And I was like, yes, you do. I said, that's called a full body yes. And that's how you know that's the piece for you. So I'm waiting for a full body yes on the piece for this room because it can't be too big. It could be a big piece of art. It could be a piece of furniture. And I'll know it when I see it. So no rush. This is like a laboratory for us designers, our homes, where we're trying new things. And I have a store in town, a home store, and source antiques from France and Belgium and all around. And so sometimes I like to change things around and live with things for a while and then swap them out with other things. And so one of the things that I love that I've done with this French table is I've chosen to go with these mid-century chairs, which I could come around and do over here. But what they've done by mixing this again with this mid-century piece is that it feels less stuffy. It doesn't take up visual height. There's not a lot of upholstery, but they're super comfortable. And so people always kind of comment and love the combination of this French trestle table with these mid-century chairs because it's unexpected. And again, it keeps it kind of like, I don't know, a little hip and cool, a little less stuffy, because I definitely believe that everything should be livable and casual. And nobody wants to come into a house where they feel like, oh my gosh, I can't touch anything, or like, oh, if I set my drink down. We don't have that here. We have dogs, of course. So everything and anything can handle wear and tear. So we love it. And again, this rug too was one that we found, kind of this Turkish rug, but it was really nice because I was trying to find a size that didn't fill the whole room, because this is kind of also a pass-through. Like I said, it's a Rambler, so it goes in a circle. And this rug was just the perfect size to anchor the chairs and the dining table, because otherwise it would just have dissolved into the wood floors. So rugs are a great way to anchor the zone and have your wood furniture not dissolve right into the floor. If I had to describe my style, I would say it probably depends on a couple of factors. One is the architecture, and two might be the location. So for this house, which is more of a country house, I tend to lean on the side of collector, right? It's like, this is the place where you get to kind of go more maximalist in the country. When I've done mid-century modern and I worked a lot in Palm Springs, the vibe there is so much different. So it wouldn't be maximalist for me there, when if I spend more clean, ethereal, open, light. But for here, because it's also, we have all the seasons, there's something too that's very comforting in the winter about a space like this, where you can sit by the fire, you're surrounded by books, you'll see the collection of crystals all scattered throughout. And it's just pretty magical that any time of year, what I love about this house is you get light and bright, and it doesn't feel overly like heavy, yet at the same time it feels comfortable, and each piece tells a story. I've got, I know when I got that piece and that piece and that crystal and that little cow painting that I love so much on the fireplace. Always cow paintings catch my eye. And this little one is so interesting because it's an oil on board, right? And like I said, I love the formality of framed, but I also love the simplicity of unframed. You'll notice that's the theme throughout too. But this little cow painting I loved so much because I thought it was so sweet. And again, it's kind of like, it's got an ethereal component to it too. We were walking around and I was like, I should have got that painting. It's gonna be one of those regrets where you wish you had done it, but you didn't. Well, a little bit later, next thing you know, my husband's like, here's your painting. I don't know how or where he remembered to go find that thing, but he did. And that's why it gets a special little spot up here, because it's so thoughtful and meaningful to me. So, but yeah, so now we have wound up in the library area, which again, Rambler makes a circle. And this is one of my favorite rooms, I would say, in the wintertime. Because I said in Vermont, which there are definite seasons, you get your fall foliage, which is beautiful. And then you get your kind of like your winter, like your white Christmas, all that. And this fireplace, fun fact about this fireplace is I used the leftover of the island countertop to make this stone hearth so that there was no waste. And it kind of just covered up the brick and made it very clean and fresh. So there's simple ways like that where I'm always looking to make those subtle changes, those subtle details that just really up level and elevate a home, but I didn't have to buy any extra stone. So I love this room, it's so cozy. In fact, this was the previous owner's settee, and I thought they were getting rid of everything. They were in their late 80s actually, and had not been here in years. And so I asked for a few pieces, and they were so touched that I wanted them, but it never recovered. But it's so cozy because it's nice to have the height. You don't always get that. But just to tell you a little bit more about me and how I ended up in this profession, it actually was not one of those that I was immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an interior designer when I grow up. I've figured out who I am by figuring out who I'm not. So I've kind of meandered to kind of like this house, as a matter of fact, to try different things. But I ended up having my first career was real estate in Houston, Texas. And I sold real estate for about 8 years. But during that process is when I really started to get the sense of how people reacted to spaces and how I reacted to spaces and how people lived. And sometimes it was frightening and sometimes it was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But through that process is when I think I started to train my eye and start to really appreciate and notice subtle details in styling. And then I found myself helping clients pick paint colors. And then after they had closed, it's like, well, what should I do with the bathroom? But it wasn't really until I did my first house myself. It was a gut renovation, knew nothing about it. And I fell in love with the process. And I'd always heard people talk about like flow states and doing something you love and you lose track of time. Well, I immersed myself in magazines and design books and started to really create this home for myself. And it ended up being a reflection of who I am. It was a reflection of what I loved. I was surrounded in, what I found is that there was this power to home, and I would walk in the door and I would be like, oh, gosh, it feels good to be home. And that was the moment that I knew how powerful it really is to have a home, and so fortunate to have that, but to get to create one for yourself is even more special. And so it's an opportunity to really express yourself in a way that maybe you haven't before. It's like, who would you have been before the world tells you who you should not be, right? So I did a lot of soul searching and and I take my clients to 40 questions to get to the heart and the essence of who they are, so we can really capture that in what we're doing. And that's the part that I love the most, I think, is that I don't have just one particular style, because it's not all about me. I mean, sometimes it is, but no, I'm kidding. With my clients, it's not all about me. It is about you and about me helping you express your vision. And I have the experience. I've had my business now for 13 years. I started with Stephen Gambrell in New York City. How lucky am I? That's where I got my first internship, and at the end of the summer. Oh, this is a lesson to all you out there that are thinking about design. I was an intern. So at 32, I basically decided, this is what I have to do with my life. I'm supposed to help people create spaces that are a reflection of who they are and how they aspire to live. And so I sold everything I owned, moved to New York City, went back to school, studied interior design. Got my first internship with Stephen Gambrell, and it was just like pure magic. It's almost like I felt like when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, the universe will show up and support you in so many miraculous ways, because so many doors just opened that it's hard to even explain how that all came to be. But I knew and felt that I was on the right path. And so people are like, weren't you scared to just sell everything and do that at 32? I'm like, no, actually that's what was so amazing, is I just knew, well, probably through my meditation practice and learning to become still and listening to my inner guide and my higher self versus inner critic, I was able to distinguish no, this is what makes your heart sing. This is what you're supposed to do. This is where you're going to feel fulfilled. And so I just trusted in that. And it's turned out to be pretty good, I have to say. It is so important and impactful in how our homes are the foundation for our well-being. They either set us up for success, or they can be detractors and be, like I said, stressors that are unnecessary, because the only place that we have actually control over anything in the world is in our own homes. And so we need these places to retreat to. I was using the word sanctuary years before the pandemic. People are like, I don't know if I'd say sanctuary about a home now because that might alienate people and not get you business. I'm like, but you know what? A sanctuary is a place of refuge and a place where you are restored. And I said, that's what homes are and can be if they're designed consciously and with that intention. And so since the pandemic, it was almost like everybody said, oh my God, you're so true. There was a book that came out last year, and as a matter of fact, it was called Seeking a Sanctuary. And they used one of my quotes in the foreword of the book about my definition of home and sanctuary. And so it's really kind of been very moving to me that like I followed this dream, and now this passion that I had and how important home is, I'm getting to be one of those people when I used to flip through the magazines and be like, I wonder what it would be like to inspire people to live more beautifully every day. Gosh, that must be so cool. Like, because I would try things I would see and make flower arrangements or try to style differently, or like, oh, I never knew about groups of threes, it's so important, you know, and I would learn those things in those magazines. And now it's like I get to be and do just that. I get to teach people how to live more beautifully every day because, you know, we have to make the mundane more meaningful because every day, most days are ordinary, right? But they don't have to be. We can dial it up just even 10%. So I could go down a whole rabbit hole about all this stuff because I love design so much, but enough about me. I want to introduce you to my greatest muse, and one of the reasons why we had to have this particular space is because when you walk out through this rambling space, you are then, I would have to say the word mesmerized by Mother Nature. And she is definitely my greatest muse. I find all of my color palettes, my inspiration always starts with nature. I tell people, if you don't know what your color palette is, take a walk. Look at rocks, look at the barks of trees. Sometimes the lichen and the moss can be the ochres and the yellows and the greens, and the browns, the earth tones are all right there. Okay, so here we are, Mother Nature, the greatest muse. I mean, just look around. We all know that when we go to beaches or mountains or places of nature, we all are like, or even a sunset, right? Or even sometimes a rainy day. But here is the reason why we had to have this property. Because of the views, the location, the land. The sun rises over here in the east every morning. I sit and have my coffee, I do my meditation. The dogs are taking their little naps after they eat. It's just pure heaven to me. And I feel like it's almost like a magical land in a way. I think Vermont is like that in general. It's so enchanting, and it's so interesting to meet people here and how they've all randomly sort of ended up in this area. Because I do believe it's like, we talk about different vortexes like Sedona. I think there's something special about this place too, for sure. But we actually added this terrace. It kind of stepped out into just like nothingness. But in order to really utilize this space, we added on this sort of like semicircle terrace, and we wanted to be able to step down and have these ledges. And I love to kind of work with the same color flower palette. So usually there's more lavender and Russian sage and salvia, different shades of purples, and it keeps it kind of very serene and fresh. And of course I love a white house, especially in the country. But the stone walls, the masons that did this, I have to tell you y'all, it took them several months. They literally hand chipped every piece that they put together. I mean, true artisans. And that's another thing I love about Vermont, is there is such craftsmanship and such artistry about everything that people do, and that the people that we got to work with on this home. But we love this space so much because it just feels like heaven. Okay, so we are in summer, which of course is like my favorite time of year. I'm a Gemini, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, so it's my season. But I also just love the green and the color. And so what you'll find here is that we've really chosen to kind of go very natural, very kind of like more English gardens, where it's just like everything can just grow, low maintenance, don't have to worry about it. We love the staggering of the pots and the heights, and we fill those with boxwoods and lavender and Spanish lavender. It's been very unseasonably hot here in Vermont, but usually it's not that. And there's always a nice gentle breeze because we are on the hills up here. So this is what I was talking about, where one mountain looks to another mountain, and then between that is the Battenkill River. The most amazing moment that I've had probably in my entire life that was totally free was we came out here. It was my friend's 40th birthday. It was this time of year. Her birthday was actually 2 days ago, and this was 2 years ago. We came out after dinner. It was a new moon, so the sky was completely black, but it's firefly season. So every night right now, down in the meadow where all the wildflowers are and the willow trees is filled with fireflies, and it's magical. But that particular night, because it was so dark, and the skies were clear, you couldn't tell where the fireflies stopped and the stars began. It was really one of the most breathtaking experiences. We all kind of like walked over here and we just kind of like stood on these rocks and just said nothing for about 10 minutes as we took it all in. And from up here, you actually get to see how this goes down into the meadow. And so we have about 20 acres up here that's kind of open, and some land over there. We've got the pond over here. And then we have some more acreage, probably 40 more acres that go up the mountain there that we have trails through. They connect with our neighbor's trails. He has 100 acres, so it's really fun to kind of get to be in and amongst nature. And who doesn't love the sound of pea gravel, right? It's just such a comforting thing. So I'm all about engaging the senses, because I believe interior is not just something that we see, it's something that we experience. And it should engage the senses and nourish the soul. And so I always am making sure when I'm creating spaces that I think about how all the senses are being engaged in a multisensory experience of a home. So what I had always dreamed of when I was looking at these magazines, and my design magazines, was like I would see these New England gardens where you could cut your own flowers. And being in Texas, we don't have peonies, we don't have lilacs, we don't have dahlias, we don't have any of that necessarily. And so I had always kind of dreamed of having a garden. So for my wedding, instead of getting presents or whatever, if you wanted to do that, I just said, why don't you, if you want to, contribute to a garden fund? Because I would love that everyone that was a part of our wedding contributed to the building of our garden. So it's really special to me because I have one now. Come see. It took us a year to get built last year, but so it's still a baby garden, but I did grow my first dahlias last year and my first peonies, and we are at an in-between season. So well, here it is. So this is a crabapple tree. And so I got my potting shed here that I designed, and my raised beds, and I got roses on one side. We've got the peonies over here. They just bloomed and they were so beautiful. I'm sorry you get to see them. There are some inside, you'll see, that are left, but most of them are gone. And now we're that in-between season before the ranunculus comes, and then of course dahlia season, which is everybody's favorite, and it lasts so long, where peonies are short-lived. But yeah, so this is it. And I still am in the process of decorating the inside of my potting shed, which is in the works, but it's this definitely is a dream come true. And so we're growing flowers, of course. We've got roses, we've got kale, we've got tomatoes, we've got butter lettuce that we're trying this year. So this year was kind of a big experiment to see what does well up here, but I absolutely love it. I come out here every morning and start my day with a little bit of nature, and life can be so fast and hectic. It's so important that we anchor ourselves in, slow down, and I'm definitely one that believes in like putting your feet on the earth and grounding yourself and just drawing up. And sometimes it's like we forget to take that pause because we're just going, and then our nervous systems are fried. See, another rabbit hole. But anyway, as you can see, this really is a little bit of heaven. And like I said, I love that the roses are doing well, the dahlias are doing well. These will be dahlias, and they'll be coming up in August is more of when they start to thrive. There's one little peony that didn't quite open, but the rest of them have all been cut and distributed and gifted, and of course I've enjoyed some too. But yeah, this is really kind of the culmination of, I would say, my 15-year journey of when I was looking at magazines and kind of having this dream of being a designer living in New England. It's a dream come true. It's pretty wild. It's very humbling, for sure. It's nice and cool in here, so come on back inside. Okay, so I don't know if y'all got a chance to meet officially. This is Mabel. This is Miss Mabel, honey. And this is Crosby. Okay, so now though, let me show you the heart and the hub of the home. It's my favorite part, but it's the great room in the kitchen, which is one big open concept. And when we bought this home, this is where we ended up having to do most of the work to get it to be something that felt perfect for us. This actually was a little doorway that had a swinging door that went to the dining room. So I was like, how much space can we open? And so we kind of just tested and tested and tested, and we realized we could get this much more space. And it totally, this one thing transformed this whole house. I kid you not. I was just like, what? So it just keeps that flow kind of going. But this room especially is kind of so special because when we love to entertain and we love to have guests stay with us to escape from everyday life, right? But when we do, it's like we've got enough space here that feels cozy and comfortable. And like I said, nothing is kind of ostentatious or over the top. I mean, you'll notice there's like a crack in the antique, and I love that, right? Because like I said, I'm all about embracing imperfection. It's taken me a long time as a perfectionist to be okay with not being okay sometimes, because that's just how life is. And having the capacity to hold it all is really one of the biggest lessons that I think we're here to learn. So in this room, of course, blue being my favorite color, is one of the colors that I feel like is the most soothing to my soul. It's the one that kind of lifts my spirits, and I think everyone has kind of their signature color. And the interesting thing I will tell you about in all my, fun fact, another one, is in all my years when I ask people what colors they don't like, I've never heard blue. Blue may not be your favorite color, but nobody has ever said, I hate blue. Not heard it once. But that was just a little side note, fun fact. But so I chose to go with blues in here, and one reason is because we have these amazing views outside, and so we often see the blue skies. And so I wanted to not compete with that, but yet bring that in and have that be a natural transition. And so even the artwork here, you'll notice, I kind of wanted it to feel and create some symmetry, and I wanted it to feel almost like blue skies, or how the skies change, where there's fog in the morning, or there's mist, or it all comes through here. And so every day is just like a whole new canvas. My husband actually painted both of these for me because I couldn't find what I wanted, and he's like, I think I'll give it a whirl. And so he did, and I think they're absolutely amazing. And it's got all these amazing colors and textures and depth, and almost anchors the space now. Another fun thing, y'all, when you're searching for lamps, this lamp I've had with me since I started. It's probably one of my first purchases when I moved up to this area. Actually, I was living in New York. It's in my apartment. But this sort of those mid-century lamps that you always walk by and you're like, oh, that base is like that scratchy brass or that big chunky wood, and it's always looks just tarnished, and you just want to pass by it. Well, I saw this pottery and I said, this is very cool, and it's got my colors. I love the texture. And that's when I learned from Steven. It's like, all you have to do is change the base, have it rewired. So these lamps have just a bronze base now, and I had it rewired, and I think I paid, fun fact, I think I paid $30 for the lamps, and then I spent another $150 on the rewiring of the base, and they just been to me, a showstopper in every home we've had. This table too, oh my gosh, this is from the 1870s, Swedish. Original paint has worn, but you just can't beat that, y'all. I mean, to me, but this table is an example of why it's so important, I think, to incorporate antiques into your home. Number one, it's sustainable. Otherwise, they end up in landfills, which we don't need that. But also, this is like sculpture. This is art. This craftsmanship. So I think when I kind of try to educate my clients to look at it in a different way, it's like, these are very modern sofas, for sure. The angles, the lines, very modern. The coffee table, travertine, brass. We've got something from the 1960s, Harvey Prober, terrazzo here, a modern chaise, but then we've got this antique chair that I got at a garage sale that I then just reupholstered in the sun fabric. I think this chair cost me maybe $300. So I think it just kind of goes to show that you can create more personality. It's like I tell clients, we don't want a catalog look. We don't want it to look like it's a staged home or hospitality. We want it to really feel like it's got some character and expressions of things you love. And so I love terrazzo. So these tables are made by Harvey Prover in the 1960s. And so they work perfectly. And who would have thought in a country home? But they do. And of course, another fireplace. So this is like the all-season room. We did have to add all of the millwork because one of the things that I find in some of the homes that I've lived in is that they feel more spec home-ish, like there were builders built them, but there was no millwork, there's no trim. And that's one simple way to really give some heft and some heart and some strength to a home is by adding millwork. And so we added the beams to the ceiling. It was just sheetrock. We added the wainscot here, and that really just changed to transform this whole space for sure. And then from here, if you just go this direction, again, open, open, open. This is my favorite probably space of all. And even with the outdoors, y'all, we have get-togethers, everyone hangs out right in here. And I'll tell you some fun facts. So these are the original cabinets, which were done by a very well-known millworker. They were pine, and so they were kind of yellow, they had knots, and these pieces over here, well actually, yeah, these pieces here had like little clovers and things cut out of them in decorative ornament. This was like a plate rack. And I said, I don't want to have to rip out all these cabinetry. I mean, it's beautiful the way that it's done. So I ended up turning this, there was like another couple of shelves here, but I wanted a clean waterfall edge. So by doing that, we created more space, but we also got rid of some of that ornamentation that made it feel dated and old, and now it feels more modern and contemporary. And then by getting rid of this plate rack, I have this thing for flower paintings, like old vintage paintings. And it wasn't recently until I realized, like, what is it that I love about these? And I realized that every one that I have, they're all individual flowers. So it's like just roses, just sunflowers. I have just what we can spin around. We have chrysanthemums over here. This was one of the first purchases my husband and I bought together in one of our first houses that I love probably the most of the ones that we have. I think the light and the colors are beautiful. But that was kind of interesting for me to see that after all these years, I never realized it wasn't floral arrangements that I was collecting. It was actual individual flowers just tossed in a vase. Super simple. The thing about that though, too, I love, people can get so hung up on the frames, and it's like, sometimes the best treasures are in broken frames or chipped, and all you have to do is just hang the canvas. I love seeing the nails. Let's look at it. Let me show you. Because people always comment on this, and so if you haven't known this, now you will. Look at this. So this is just simply unframed. I took the frames off and hung the canvas on the wall, but the way they made the canvases back then is they just literally nailed the canvas wrapped around the frame, and you get to see the nails, which adds just another extra layer of detail and texture. So don't be afraid to have unframed and framed. In fact, experiment. It's a laboratory. Try different things and see if you like it. So yeah, so more about the kitchen. So this was a beast. I mean, it's huge, as you can see. And the stone guy, so it originally had the one sink, and then it had 5 other materials. There was part wood that was raised. There was some countertop that was tile, bathroom tile. And then there was another part that dropped down that was like butcher block. Well, I was not gonna have a multi-leveled space. And he's like, we're gonna have to have a seam. I'm like, I can't have a seam, not on an island like this. He's like, it's gonna be too big. Like, how are we even gonna get it in the house? I'm like, I don't know, how are we gonna do it? And he said, if you can find us a countertop large enough to fit this whole space, I'll figure out a way to get it done. And so I found the largest piece of Taj Mahal quartzite that I could find. And the reason I love quartzite is because it's not like marble where you have to worry about staining, spilling. Quartzite is the most resilient, the hardest, the most durable. You can spill on it, you can get red wine on it, it cleans right up. So it's kind of like my version of when you think of like a white farmhouse kitchen. But I chose not to do that. I chose actually to take it a shade down from the white that I normally would do, and went with like a Benjamin Moore Revere pewter, actually, for the cabinetry and satin. And it turned out really nicely because I think it just softened it up a little bit. And it transitions so well with the seasons. And of course, when he got this piece of stone, he had to build a hydraulic lift that he brought in. 7 guys came in because they needed the hydraulic lift to lift it up so they could then lay it flat. So we did it. And then surprisingly, I was like, how are we going to support this thing over here? Because I wanted to have at least a breakfast spot for 2. So this was new to me, but there's a huge metal bracket that they built and had this guy make that comes out to support the overhang. And then we used a post that was similar to architecture here to anchor that, but the support is actually coming from that metal brace. So what I love about design is that sometimes when you get to those places where it's like a real challenge, like, how am I going to do this? It's like, if you work together with your contractors and you're kind, then it's amazing how they'll jump through hoops too to get really creative and resourceful to figure out ways to help you really achieve what it is you're going for. And so I love collaboration. I definitely believe that's like, I'm the designer, but we are a team. And I think, you know, all the ideas coming together is how you get and achieve something masterful. So this is probably my favorite thing. And I didn't know till I did this house about all the fun things they're doing in terms of finishes. So this is actually what they call a leather finish. Most people are familiar with honed or polished, right? Leather is kind of an in-between where it has just a little bit of texture to it and feels super soft. And so both the exterior, which I chose to go with just an absolute granite, because there's so much of it. I think this length of that one is like 26 feet. Side note, the homeowner who custom built that had the musician husband, she was a chef. And so that is why the kitchen is probably the size that it is. But this was just like a big open, kind of like commercial fridge. Again, the clover motif echoed everywhere. So I had a mill worker come in and just replace those pieces instead of tossing out all the cabinetry all together and making it work for us. So now that we've seen about the kitchen, I want to tell you a little bit more about some of my favorite things. So come with me. So this was another piece that like had all the clovers and the things, but I'm like, but I love this piece because it's going to help me showcase all the things that I love in a nice, tidy way, because tchotchkes everywhere and just sort of, it's like makes me crazy. But this helps me to display the things that I love and that bring me a lot of joy. And so I do love flowers and I do love floral plates, and I love to mix them with just white plates, and that's my husband will let me get a pass there. But nothing too overly floral. But some of my favorite things, like look at the color of these. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. And so I will use these as like a salad plate with just a white dinner plate, and you just up-leveled your whole dining experience. One of the pieces, like I said, like I love this cabinet in particular is because it holds so much meaning and so much history. This picture here, for example, was a picture that David's mom, who is no longer with us, but when we got engaged, we were she came to visit in Connecticut, and we were out antique shopping because we all love to do that. And she saw this and she said, "Oh my gosh, stop!" She said, "Look at this." And I said, "What?" She said, "Isn't that precious?" And I said, "It is precious." She said, "Well, I want y'all to have this as a gift of my excitement for your engagement." And so this means a lot to me. And so that's here. And then these plates actually here are also, they were David's mom's. And so his whole family wanted me to have them when she passed away. And that just means, you know, so much to like, so when people just like love you and appreciate you and know who you are and what you love. And it was kind of unanimous, like, Josh gets these, which is so special to have and be a part of family, you know. This is actually her china too, that I incorporated into all of this. And one thing I'll tell you about styling and mixing, and I rearrange things all the time, but it's kind of thinking about layering groups and textures, because this could be a hot mess, really, if I just shove stuff in here, right? But there is a method to the madness, and a lot of that is like layering in texture with wood, with standing up a plate, the groupings of 3, but like have them on a plate themselves, which kind of corrals them and contains them. I love to bring in books as layers, because every time people come into my retail space in town, they're like, you know, I can get the sofa and I can get the table and chairs, but it's the layers. Like, how do I do the layers? And so it is the layers that bring a home to life. And that's where I really love to kind of teach about that and do workshops about that. But it is also varying the colors, textures. Again, like I said, cutting board. This is like an architectural fragment, but I love that color. So I think I bought like 5 of these. And they just kind of add a nice patina to this area. But even though there's lots of things in here, there's still negative space too. And I think that's also really important to remember, is negative space when you're designing. And if you don't know what negative space is, it's kind of the space that has nothing in it. So you'll hear edit a lot. Like, sometimes you need to edit, edit, edit. But when you're designing, you want to think about, where is the space that gives everything room to breathe, right? Even in a floral arrangement, for example. So these are flowers that, since we're in between seasons, some of them from are outside and some of them are from a dear friend. There's a farmer here, Fleur Farm, and she has the best dahlias, tubers, ranunculus. She's been teaching me a lot. But these flowers came from her garden, this stilby. But you'll notice in the arrangement, like, there's negative space. Like, I didn't just cram them all in there. There's space kind of them to breathe. But I layered in some texture and dimension and color. And I always love to keep kind of green on the center of the countertop, because I just feel like, bring in the green, right? It's just a great reminder of Mother Nature, and it's a great way to, well, I mean, this is actually rosemary, so sometimes I just snap, throw it in the aga, which is another actually interesting piece of this home. This was here, which I didn't know what an aga was. So this is an educational moment. So an aga stove, it has its own chimney, believe it or not. I thought we had 3 fireplaces. Nope, it's the stove. So these are very popular in Europe, and they're always on. And at first I was like, well, I'm not okay with that, because that means that's burning a lot of propane. But come to find out, it only burns the amount of a pilot light of a gas stove, which was surprising to me, but this is always on. They're always set at a certain temperature. The skillet is like so hot. It kind of raises the temperature in here 5 degrees in a way. But like, this is your highest setting. That would be your high, medium, low. Then it kind of gets to warming drawer, and then this is kind of a warming plate. And so it's actually a little warm to the touch. We were gonna get rid of it, but it was gonna cost more to get rid of it than it would have cost, I don't know, to buy a used car. Because this thing weighs a ton, and like I said, the chimney. So we've had to learn to cook with an aga, and it's actually been kind of fun, because why people love them is it's kind of like a wood burning pizza oven in a way, because you can't dry out food. Like, I'm actually now can make good chicken. Turkey, pork tenderloin. In fact, my husband one time left pork tenderloin in the oven for like an hour, and we thought it was going to just be a shriveled up, dried, not edible. It was moist, delicious, wonderful. So we've come to love this aga. People that love to cook come in and they just are like, oh, can I cook on that thing? I'm like, sure, if you want to come cook a meal, be my guest. We would love to have you cook for us anytime. This area, really quickly, was another big case, kind of like what we have over here. And I wanted to open it up, and I wanted it to feel a little more airy and not so heavy. But I loved the fact that it had a bar sink here. So I kind of took that piece out and turned this into floating shelves. We'll just style it up. And then, again, it's just great for kind of like serving cocktails in our bar area. We've got our ice maker and all that. Yeah, again, here's an old painting of flowers, and I've got a landscape, but then I've got a modern mixed media collage with this modern artist who makes these gorgeous vessels mixed with an old French watering jug. Isn't it wild? Works of art, I love them. Okay, so why don't we now go check out a bedroom? So this is probably really another one of my favorite bedrooms in the house. It's actually the guest suite, but it is upstairs, and so you get the amazing architecture of these dormers on both sides. This goes out to the mountains. The other one goes out to the other mountain that you've seen the view of. But when thinking about guest suites, I think it's always important to think about, like, how do your guests feel most comfortable? What do they need in order to feel like they're kind of on vacation? And so I like to make sure there's always a desk in a room because nowadays sometimes you got to take a Zoom call. So having a desk, and this desk is one of the first pieces I ever purchased. I was working at Stevens. I did my first design project, and I said to myself, you know what, you deserve to get one piece with this first design commission. And so I got this marquetry desk in the 1960s, this chevron pattern. And so it's also got special meaning to me as well. But create a little moment here. People can also use it as a vanity. So great for getting ready when you're sharing space with others. And then this was actually a fun little place to kind of solve because there's this niche here. So I only could do a queen bed, and I normally like to do king, but this is a queen bed, and I got these amazing Danish nightstands that have this cool dovetail joinery, the way that they were made. There's no nails in any of this. It's all pieced together by the way the wood was cut. Isn't that wild? And of course, who doesn't love fluffy, comfy bedding? So in here, I kind of had this thing where somebody told me recently, they walked into my shop in town and they're like, you kind of sometimes have this like coastal country vibe. And I'm like, coastal country? Huh. I've never really heard that phrase, but I kind of like it because oftentimes in bathrooms of homes that I do in the country, you will find ship paintings. I love seascapes. It's hard because it's like when you think about, I want a beach house, or I want a country house, or I want a I get to have a little bit of both. But no, this one is one that this is one of my favorite pillows too. I love ticking stripe. It's just classic, it's timeless, it goes with everything, and it just says everything to me about summer, freshness and fun. But this is actually a vintage textile. So it's got some little holes and things in it. But this lady makes, that everyone feels that I see every year when I go. She makes the most amazing pillows from old textiles that she finds. And so these were kind of the starting point for that. But then my mom stays in here a lot, and David's mom stayed in here a lot. So David let me have one floral. I got one floral pillow, which I think adds just another layer of fun to this room. And then of course you want a reading space so they can lounge, put your feet up, read. And then you've got the amazing views of the mountains here. And you also get a little sneak peek about what's happening down there as well. So this, again, is one of my favorite little spots, kind of like a little hideaway. A home to me is not just a shelter, but a place that we dwell and we connect to ourselves, to our loved ones, to the divine. It's a place where we make memories. It's a place where we can nourish our spirits and inspire our minds. And they have the ability to really transform our lives in so many ways and support our well-being. And with that, I think the UPS man is here, and it's time for me to get to the studio because I think there are people knocking on the door. I can sense it, wanting to buy antiques. So I'm gonna head that way, and until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.